So tell us about that first bit then, Dave. What year was that?
Well, that was about 2 years ago now, and in the first instance, the whole area to the right of the church, as you look from the front, was all a fence with barbed wire across the top, which looked more like Colby's camp than the side of a Methodist church. So it's all very, very overgrown, which in a sense is good for wildlife, but it was a bit too overgrown, a bit too wild. So basically, in the early days, the fence eventually came down, and a group of enthusiastic people came, about a dozen, and one Saturday morning we just cleared it all completely of all the brambles, of all the rubbish, and really went to town on it, and that really paved the way really for doing other work in the future to actually clear the site, and that was a very important piece of work that those people did in the first instance.
The most important aspects of a wildlife garden, obviously we get like habitats for little creatures.
I think it's basic needs really, same as it is for us. It's food, which we've got to feed, water, shelter, somewhere to have the young and that kind of thing, breed and shelter and food and water. Basic needs. Everything needs the same sort of basic needs, really, don't they, really?
And not interfering by putting pesticides down, isn't it? That's the other thing.
No, because it gets in the food chain.
And you've got like pollinator flowers to attract bees and butterflies.
Yeah, that's everything we've put in sort of new. Some of the stuff was here already, but some of that's good as well. We've tried to think of, we put in pollinating things and things that have berries, a lot of berries for the birds to eat, as well as the flowers, and then there's fruit, soft fruit, which the humans or birds can eat, and whoever gets to it first. There's a bit of fruit coming on this.
Like a bug house, you can put whatever you like in.
Yeah, it's true. I've got a little tiny one in my garden, and it's just old bits of wood, and I've just stacked it up and then filled it with twigs.
There's no sort of right and wrong, is there?
You can it's great that
imagination.
You don't need any building skills.
Children could do that, couldn't they? Probably make a far better job than we would do.
For people to start like a wildlife garden of their own, do you think it's quite difficult for somebody who has maybe no knowledge of gardening to learn how to dig or plant stuff?
I think you learn as you go along, and you make mistakes and maybe get information by reading and internet.
Well, like that lady that came this morning was a good example. She's the wife of a student of mine, and he said, could she come and look at the garden? Now, what she's done this year, she just had a lawn, because she had 4 boys. They all played football in the garden. That's what the garden was for. So this year, what she's done, she's let the grass grow and then mown paths through it, which is great. She had a few poppies come in, but she wants it to be like a wildflower meadow. So Lynn's advised her, this year, dig out those bits, clear it, and then just chuck some seeds on and see what happens. And Lynn said exactly the same, she's got to try it. A resident in Chorlton who's going to try and make their garden a bit more wildlife friendly, and then she asked Dave about the hedgehog thing and the bat boxes. So she may go back now and make her garden a bit wilder, mightn't she? And she's involved in a school somewhere.
Yeah, so it could spread. It's a bit like these ripples again, isn't it? That's how I sort of see it, and like she goes back and she starts ripples, doesn't she?
She might do a little project at school or something where they leave a corner of the playing fields wild or something.
That's right. So different, you inspire one another, don't you? And you might go to somebody's garden and say, that looks alright, I'll try that,
that was it. She wanted to look round, and Lynn told her about the Welsh poppies, how to collect the seed, how to spread that.
Well, it was a bit like the pebble in the pond idea, really. You drop a pebble in and the ripples go out. And my idea was really that people come to the garden of all ages, really, school kids, retired people, anybody really, and they come and they have a look at what's going on in the garden, some of the habitats we've created, and the bird nesting boxes, and the hedgehog things, and feeding the birds, and bird baths, and all the sort of habitat things, and some of the plants, and pollinators, and bees, and insect places, bug houses, all this. They come and they see that and they get really enthusiastic about it, and then the ripple effect is they go back to their own schools, to their own gardens, and they start to do some things there. So it spreads out into other people's gardens, and that was one of my visions really, in setting up the wildlife garden really.
Because it might inspire some child to do the next David Attenborough. Just that little spark, and the idea was great. It might be a young or old person, I don't know, do you?
And the other sort of main reason for starting up the garden in the first place was the State of Nature report came out in May 2013. It was launched by David Attenborough, actually the museum in London there, and all the leading charities to do wildlife and nature, about 25, 26 charities contributed to the State of Nature report. And it basically said that nature and wildlife was more in decline than they even feared, and you think they're not good. It was, worse than they anticipated, and to really try and do something to stop this decline, and and that was the biggest motivating factor within setting up the wildlife garden really. And I was reading once an RSPB magazine, and the guy was saying there about what you can do, and one of it was, if you're in a position to speak out about wildlife, to promote things, and I thought, well, being a minister in the Methodist Church, I do come across an audience, if you like, as part of my job, and so that really spoke to me. Well, that's something I can do. I can speak out for wildlife and promote wildlife and try and encourage other people to get enthusiastic about wildlife and support it in their patch. But I am enthusiastic about it, and I hope my enthusiasm might rub off on other people, and they get enthused, and again, it's the ripple effect, isn't it?
That's right.
The other thing is, like, you have these nature reserves and set up and stuff, but when you think if we all pool our little garden together, what a mosaic of nature reserves we actually make with all of the gardens, and it's creating these green corridors as well, isn't it? And gardens are green corridors because they're all linked together in a row of houses, and all down that street there's a whole green corridor as things can go from garden to garden.
Absolutely.
And this particularly for hedgehogs, things like the Hedgehog Street project, which was started up to encourage houses in rows to work together to have a space under their fence, or some sort of access for hedgehogs to go from garden to garden, so their territory increases, and they don't have to go out onto the road so much where they're very vulnerable, things like this.
Volunteers have all come from different, areas.
Yeah.
We're not all gardeners, but we've learnt about things, haven't we?
Yeah, that's right.
We're all different gardens.
Yeah. And it's so true about, when I came, I thought, Kim, have you really got time? You can't even look after your own garden.
I'm the
It
same.
inspired me to go back.
Yeah, to do,
and look after mine a bit
that's
better.
right, it does.
Yeah, and also not to worry too much if it's a bit overgrown, because that's better, isn't it? And I think that's one good thing, is takes a bit of the stress out of gardening. If you're like me and you want everything neat and tidy, but then you think, well, that's not so good for wildlife.
Yeah.
It's better for the person, not so stressful.
Yeah, no, you're right. Apart from that, you can come and sit on the bench and listen to the birds, look at things,
And it's open, isn't it?
and you might have a lot of problems, and your mind's clear and think about things, and you come away. You won't alter your problems, but you come away in a different frame of mind.
Yeah, you do.
So,
Well, I was thinking this morning, I love waking up on Monday morning and thinking, oh, I'm going there. You know, not, oh, I've got this to do, I've got that to do. You know, it's really lovely.
It's when you haven't got things to do, you worry.
That's what it is, yeah.
But sometimes you have too much, really.
Yeah, you
like
do,
to do this, that, and the other. But
Well, I don't want it to be
No,
Dave's garden. I'm not the sort of person who wants a sign put up,
no,
or anything like that. It's just, again, it's for you people now. I hope I've enthused you to carry on. Well, one of the hardest things that I find that church people try and give me most of the credit for it. I think that's important that it's not seen as that. My legacy would be really that I've started it off, but hopefully enthused others then to carry it on. It was my idea.
It was your project, wasn't it?
True. Yeah, it was. I was the catalyst for starting. But the amount of people that have been involved in it, I couldn't do it single-handedly.
No.
30 odd tons of soil and all this kind of thing on my own, and the idea was never to do that anyway. It was to get other people enthused and involved and inspired.
Which you've done, haven't you? Because people have come, some people come once and many times, haven't they? So.
And you now do things in your own garden.
Oh yeah, well it's probably has generated things what I've done here. I'm trying to do in my own garden. This is a bigger area than my garden, but I am trying to do things.
So you're a product of the ripple effect.
Yeah.
You came here, and now you go back to your own garden and you do
things.
Garden now.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased because that's one of the aims that I had in mind when starting up. If only you've done it, you'll make the difference now for wildlife in your garden.
Yeah, well, I was pleased to, when it's my first sort of volunteer job since I retired, so I didn't know what to expect when I first came, but perhaps I can do something. It's local, I thought, I'll come and see what I can do, probably to be able to do something, so that's how I started, so yeah. So, I've enjoyed it,